in the garden. I never was a sedentary person. Coach, bicycling, in and out of the gym. I wasn't a fast food eater, but I wasn't able to put everything together, I guess, the right way, right? So when I had my wreck last year, I was stationary for about 7, 8 months as far as not being able to do anything but walking, right? I still coached, but that wasn't very active. But as I've said in the past, I saw a photo of myself, and it was just like somebody threw water in my face.
Billy,
So,
can you tell me this is it? This is definitely one of those turning points. What were you thinking? What were you feeling when you saw that photo of yourself? Because I've had plenty of those photos back in the day myself.
well, at that time I had let the beard grow a little bit, so it was a little wider than normal. And I had just, and of course, it was the end of a long day. We had won the tournament. Everybody wanted to take photos. So everybody was happy, but it had been a long day. Obviously, I was in pain. I was still dealing with cracked ribs and a broken collarbone at the time. And we were, I was out on the field for the whole day, plus the whole weekend. And I just looked old and tired. And when I saw that photo, I was like, that's just not me. I'm not old enough to be looking like that or feeling like that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I was still in the recovery phase and even had to be delayed because I had to have surgery later to repair the collarbone. But after that, I had committed to myself at getting back into shape like I thought I was in my late 20s, early 30s, right? And I was shocked at how far I had let it slide because up until that point, I was doing 40-mile rides. I was doing 50-mile rides. I even did 60-mile rides in the weight I was at. So I was somewhat in a denial phase, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
because I was still in and out of the gym. I was doing workouts from the home with, weights and stuff. But again, it was just not all put together. And I
Like,
stressed.
would you say, Billy? Sorry to be
Yep.
like structured, kind of like maybe a bit hodgepodge, like here and there, and what that looked like?
I would have certain routines, right?
Okay.
Um, but I was not putting it together with, I was eating quote unquote what I thought was clean, but obviously ratios were a little bit out of skew. It had to be, right? We weren't fast food eaters. But anyway, it just did not seem to work. And I was contributing it. I was middle age, middle 50s. I was older, metabolism slowing down, blah, 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 blah. Just this is what it is, right? Dad bod, right? But when I saw that, I was just like, no, I'm not gonna settle with that. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm
Why did you not want to settle for that?
oh well, I still thought I was pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
age wise. And I still felt like, and the guys I was riding bikes with were either my age, younger, or even older that were kicking my ass, to be quite honest. And I was like, these
Mm-hmm.
guys are kicking my ass and they're older than me. There's not a reason for that other than they're not having to carry that saddlebag that I'm carrying, right?
Mm-hmm.
The joke is around riding bikes. It's cheaper to lose 10 pounds than to buy a lighter bike.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was like, all right, it's time. Let's get after it. So, the last serious time I was really serious into getting into shape, and I thought I'd got in pretty good shape, I was doing CrossFit. And then again, surgeries delayed all that. Um, but So the morning that I ran across you, I was just getting ready to, and I overanalyze everything. It's just
I'm glad.
I'm an engineer by trade, so I beat anything to death. So I had already been doing some research on how I wanted to attack, what I wanted to attack. Although I'd known I had failed before, I had met with some nutritionists once before, and that person was great. Although I just met him once a week, right? It
Yeah.
was and it was maybe 15, 20 minutes a week, and that was it. So between that and me getting in some serious routines in the gym, nothing seemed to ever stick more than 6, 8, 10 months.
Mm-hmm.
And unlike in my early 20s and 30s, I didn't really have a consistent workout buddy. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that was important because the day I feel like crap, that person may talk me into going to the gym and vice
Uh-huh.
versa. Right.
Uh-huh.
You can kind of talk each other into showing up because someone else is counting on you to be there.
Mhm.
So anyway, that Saturday morning, I was up early and I was getting my game plan, and I stumbled on one of your videos. I don't even know how I found it. Again, I'm not big on social media, so the rabbit holes. There's no way to know how I found it, but I found it, and I was like, okay, dude with a funny accent. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah.
And I kept watching more and more. I even went to your website and watched more, looked to see who you were. And I was like, okay, this guy's interesting. But there again, I don't go out of my way to make contact with anybody on social media.
Mhm.
I just don't. And then I don't know what it was, but as I got to scrolling, I said, I've done this my way so many different times.
Uh-huh.
Why not? Why not give him a call? I mean, because that's where I think I saw it either on your Instagram or your website. I don't remember which one, about booking a call.
Yep.
And I was like, oh hell, let's just book a call and let's talk, because I was already ready to go to the next person.
Yep.
And I'm all about face to face contact, so I was ready to find somebody local too. Again,
Mhm.
but I knew, seeing those guys from a distance, they're usually just once a week guys, or anything, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I had seen that before, so I was like, all right, I'll book a call. And I think later that morning, my phone did a funny noise. And again, I don't know about social media because I don't get a lot of DMs from anybody ever until you. And I was like, what is this? And then you had reached out to me to kind of go over the phone call expectations, or what you wanted before we got on the phone, or why.
Yep.
So I was like, wow, this is real. And so then we got on the call the following week, and I went into it, you know, skeptical. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I
Mhm.
didn't know where you were. I didn't even know what country you were in, to be honest. I knew you weren't local. I was like, but you know what? Let's try it.
Yep.
And then we talked for, I don't know, close to an hour or something like that. And by that time, I was just like, you know what? Again, nothing I've done on my own has worked. Why not?
Mhm.
Why not try this?
What is it? Can I ask you, Billy? Can I ask you that? Nothing I've done on my own has worked. What hasn't worked? That is for you. What wasn't working?
What didn't work was me taking the time, to be quite honest, and putting everything together for myself. The,
Mhm.
the consistent workout, and the guidelines for the nutrition, and just some other simple, things that we've talked about over the months, about simple things that, if you back off of this little thing or back off of that little thing, how it can make a big difference.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, I'm so um, detail oriented in everything else in my life, that when it came to that,
Mhm.
pretty well. I must say, I'm pretty lax, pretty lazy when it came to that point. So I was
Mhm.
I was kind of wanting to be autopilot.
Yep.
That's one of the great things about CrossFit. Now it's bad about joints and everything else to me, but the great thing that I loved about CrossFit was when I walked in that gym, there was a wad ready
Yep.
to go that day.
Yep.
I didn't have to think about it. I just went in and I did it.
Yep.
And that's when I got in the best shape I was in the last time, which was 20 years ago.
Mhm.
So I like the idea of someone I didn't know at first, at a distance, looking at me just as a numerical value in an analytical setup, telling me what I needed to do, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then because you give me that, I'll follow it,
Mhm.
you know. But as the time grew on, I started, asking more questions, got more involved, and, you know, took more ownership of it on myself as well, engaging, what about this, asking questions about certain nutrition, certain workouts, something like that.
Billy, do you mind? I love this, but I just want to back up there because like that experience is what stops so many men from moving forward, which is reaching out and either talking in a DM, like sending me a message, like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'm interested in finding out more about what you do."
Yeah.
They can see the evidence. They can see like these conversations that I post, real
Right.
people, no BS, salt of the earth. Um, you know, or they're nervous about booking a call. And
Right.
I understand, like I am not a fan of jumping on calls with not with the business here, but like in general for like getting a quote from a plumber or an electrician about whatever that looks like. So what that was so important, where you're like, I want to see what this guy's about. You booked the call, and what Billy was talking about there is, before our call, I say things like, look, I'm not going to talk to you if you're driving your car. I want us to take this time so that you are fully engaged, because this may change your friggin' life. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want to work with Billy if Billy is, looking at the road, or he's half-hearted, he's not into it. I do not want to work. I don't want it. I'm not going to support anyone that isn't taking the time to engage in a proper conversation, which is going to change your life. So Billy, like, you booked that call. I sent you this sort of like, hey, this is how we're going to have a great conversation and see if this is a good fit. If it's not a good fit, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
And if it is a good fit, which it was, that I felt there was a connection there, I presented that. So with you, Billy, I would love your take on that call. Very briefly, like we connected, we talked. What was your, just memories of like, or that those takeaways of that call? Like you shared, I shared, we talked about those next steps.
So one thing you probably didn't see, and I don't think I ever told you, I had a list of questions, and I peppered you, I think, pretty good with questions that day. I mean, because I didn't necessarily want you to drive the conversation. I wanted to drive the conversation in the way I wanted it to go,
Uh-huh.
and hear your answers. Right? I didn't necessarily want to hear a sales pitch. I wanted you to hear your responses to questions I had that you couldn't have prepared for.
Yeah.
And part of the thing that I liked is, again, when I say I'm middle of the road, no fluff guy, I'm not into. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just not into the quick tricks in order to see the scale go down.
Mm-hmm.
And during the whole conversation, it was all about what I call old school. Just hard work, simple. Nutritional things, simple. Put your butt in the gym and or walk and or run, whatever you need to do at the
No
time.
running, just for Billy's thing. No running. There's no running.
Or whatever.
Biking, yeah.
Yeah, whatever anybody needs to do to start their workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, this is the kind of approach that I want to do, because I don't want to put anything in me or do anything that's going to alter me down the road that I'm unaware of. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with slow and steady, because slow and steady, usually it means it's going to stick in my approach.
It's the shortcut. Slow and steady is the shortcut. You do the fixes, you try, and I tried the quick fixes back in the day when I didn't know better, until I was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to do the work. The slow and steady approach is the shortcut.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I mean, because I remember the day, I've told you about this before, back, I never did it, but back in, I don't even remember if it was 80s or 90s, but there was a drug that everybody took. It was called Fen-Phen. And it wound up killing people because of heart attacks, because it was basically amphetamines or speed or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And now you got stuff nowadays, and I don't want to poo-poo that, because if that's what you need to do, to each their own. But if I was to speak to anybody today, I would say, don't be scared of the phone call, because the phone call doesn't cost anything. I mean, it's just time. And then don't be scared of the work. It's fun at times, and you get into it, and then you see the changes, and then for me, the bike rides become a whole lot easier. Become a lot. They don't come. Let me rephrase that. They don't come easier. They just suck at a faster speed. Because go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I want to get to the bike rides. But okay, I want to just finish on the phone call here, because this is important. We talked. I answered your questions. I would have asked. I've been asking you questions as well about what you've tried, and is there an opportunity here? Have you what do I offer something different than you've tried in the past? If my approach was similar and it didn't work and there was no daylight, it wouldn't have been a good fit. So, Billy, from someone that doesn't engage much in social media, you booked a call straight off the bat. We had a conversation and connected there. Obviously, spoiler alert, like you made the decision to hire me to help you get this done. Can I ask you, like, what was that moment like where you're like, shit, like this guy's answering my questions. This feels like, again, this is the assumption. This feels like a good fit. And you've shared before that you're not one to make rash decisions.
Right.
What inspired you to make that decision?
I think, um, so to be honest, it was so out of my box. I mean, to make that rash of a decision. I mean, I went into it as educated as I could be about what I was about to have a conversation with you about, not knowing a lot of details about the business side of it. I had some ideas. I hadn't even talked to my wife about it. And but at the moment, when I book the call, and I do this with anything I do, when I reach out to somebody, whether it's a contractor for a house or something like that, I'm serious at that point, right? And I guess that's the thing that I would stress to others, to be serious about it. But when I booked the call with you, I was serious. I was ready to do something with someone, right?
Mhm.
And what I liked about your approach, although it took me a little while to get adjusted to it, talking to you through the distance, again, not being face to face, and I've got to enjoy it. But what I liked about your approach and what you were telling me was I wasn't going to talk to you once a week. I wasn't going to talk to you 5 minutes out of the week to see if I did all my workouts.
Yeah.
We were talking several times a day,
Yeah.
the back and forth,
Yeah.
stuff. And so to me, that's holding me accountable, especially early on when it's all
Yeah.
new, right? I knew the game plan, but I had someone on my shoulder, telling me, make sure you do this, or did you do this, or I see you did this, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think that's the workout buddy I was referring to earlier. I had a workout
Mhm.
buddy early on holding me accountable on the days that I may or may not have felt like doing certain things.
Yeah.
And then once I got past those weeks of not being in the normal routine, it became my normal routine. And now when I get up, I just look forward to it. It's just part of the day.
Yep. I love it. And it's funny. Now there are services, coaching services, where you will only hear from your coach once a week, but that's going to work for some people.
Sure.
That's going to work for some people. Just here's the program. But for typically, mostly the partners, the clients that we support at Isle of Fitness, Billy, we're making big changes. Like you're rolling back decades,
Right.
and that for me is it requires a high frequency of support and accountability, so that it's great when the motivation is great. Okay, I've got this coach, and it's great when you're feeling good at the start, but then the motivation is going to wear off, and
Right.
the reality is going to hit of the amount of work that it takes. And that's why I pride myself in Isle of Fitness, where and maybe sometimes it's a bit, you wish like STFU, but it's like we are, like I am there, I'm there, and it's not even, it's just a genuine partnership and connection there, where I don't think you would ever have felt like I was just trying to like talk to you just to like service you. It's like team read, let's go, and enjoying the journey with providing the everything that you need to crush it, rather
Right.
than feeling I was servicing you.
Right. Well, and I don't think you've had to get on my ass too many times.
Stacy's chips.
Stacy's chips. That's right. But you know what? Just knowing that you could be getting on my ass,
Yeah.
especially early on, helped me just make it a routine. And I think that's the big thing that people need to understand, that obviously you've got to a point in your life that eating right and or working out and or exercising is not part of the routine, right? Or they
Yeah.
wouldn't be
Yeah.
contacting you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in order to make something habit, you have to do it, I don't remember how many thousand times over and over again for it to become habits.
Yeah.
And
It's like 10,000.
that's where you come in, you know.
Yeah, and there's like that the initial stage, the big stages I see is like discipline, moving into habits, moving into lifestyle, moving into identity. And this cannot be done in 2 weeks. It just cannot be done in 2 weeks. So
Right.
Billy, I love hearing your reflections on this. We went through the phone call. You made the decision. You made a life-changing decision. So proud and pumped to be your coach and Sherpa Sean walking alongside you as you climb Mount Reed, Billy. Yeah. It's for me, it's like, you know, does anyone sort of like poo-poo someone that's climbed Mount Everest with a Sherpa, a guide? You'd be like, hell no, they've taken every single step. But when
Right.
it comes to, getting in healthy shape and, losing weight, I think guys especially can feel, well, I need to do this myself. I need to do it all myself. Um, Billy, you've taken every single step, you've done every single rep, you have done all the friggin' work. Um, but if you don't mind me offering, like the guesswork's been done, the support is there, the accountability is there, that keeps you, like as we've been talking about, honest as you climb Mount Reed.
Absolutely. Um, I'll be honest, when I decided to pull the trigger, I was feeling pretty cocky about it being successful because I felt like I was coming into it probably one of the guys that was probably more active than anybody else that you normally work with. Right or wrong, that was my opinion of it. I was just like, all right, well, I'm gonna kill this. Matter of fact, I think I started a little too early, and you had to tell me to slow down. Um, but it's still, I don't think you realize that the day to day contact, whether it's something small about anything, right? How much that makes a difference.
Yeah.
And that's the key. I mean, that was the key for me. Let me put it for that. And I'm sure that's the key for a lot of your other clients too. Because again, I'd say this. We all didn't get to where we got because we had good habits in this area. You know,
Mm-hmm.
we blew them off, put them off, whatever the excuses we have. It was not a priority. You made it a priority for us, for me, every day because it just all I gotta do is look at my phone and see which app I'm using more of on my phone than any other phone. It's the app that we use.
Yeah, trainer. I started using that for people watching. They use an app which has, Billy has his program. He opens up the app. His program is there. He tracks all the data that we need to be successful.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely. So that's the constant eyeballs always watching me.
love it. Okay, so Billy, to date today, you're down around. You started at 258 pounds. This morning, you are down to 216, which is absolutely amazing. You're a husband. You're to Susan. You're a father to two grown children, son and daughter. Would love to hear, um, you know, how has your quality of life changed, doing this work?
So obviously, for me personally, the biking is a big deal because it's a big part of my life. It was beforehand. It's just a lot more enjoyable now.
Can I
But
ask you, the big one here during our time was the Three Peaks. Can you tell us briefly what the Three Peaks were and what your hopes were for the ride and what actually happened?
so it's called a triple bypass. Uh, is the ride that everybody calls it here locally. So it's in my area. There's three big hills that we climb, um, and then you do it all in one ride. And I had never attempted it before. I've only ridden one of the hills before, which was the smallest of the three. Um, but a friend of mine who has been trying to get me to do it several times, I was like, there's just no way, man. Because some of the climb is like 12 to 15% incline grade. It's, they're not necessarily very long hills, but for someone, I was always a slow hill climber before. Just imagine 258, 260. That's a lot of weight pushing up a hill, right?
Yeah.
But on flats, I was usually okay. But anyway, we did those, and I was just wanting to complete it. I was just wanting to complete one of the hills. I knew I could complete the easiest one because I've done it, so we saved that one last. And we did the hardest one first. And then my goal was just to do that one hill, and if I did it, I was going to be happy. We wound up doing all three of the hills, and then we added another 25 miles, I think, on the ride on top of that. So
unbelievable on the triple bypass, mate. Never attempted it the whole three in your life.
never.
Smashed it and then added another 25 miles on. Absolutely incredible. One of your, what I love, Billy, for each of my clients, partners, is their passions. Biking has been a huge one for you. That was an amazing accomplishment. And just, can you tell us briefly again, your PRs, what is your PR track record been like over the last few months?
So, in this app we use called Strava, which you can use it for either biking or running or walking for that matter, people will create segments on roads or whatever. So once you hit point A to point B in that segment, that's recorded as a time, right? Well, I've been doing these routes for 6 years now, so you've got several hundred rides on some of these segments. And then in this past year, or this past summer, I should say, oh my God, I've probably logged 30 PRs maybe in this summer over those hundreds of routes that I've already ridden before.
Yeah.
And so again, just going back to it, now that I'm riding with the same guys, because I've ridden with the same guys for several years, they're seeing me now lead the pack instead of always bringing up the rear, and not having to wait on me on a climb. Usually now I'm at the front of the climb.
Hell yeah. Oh my God. Love it. It's so
yeah.
good. I love it. And as well, Billy, just, you had that wreck last year, would love to share, because I've got I've got dads as well that are like, okay, well, I want to do this, but I don't want to get injured. Can you share your training program and allude to the sustainability of that?
Yeah. So going into the wreck last year, so I had a road rash on one whole leg, top covered basically the lower half of my leg, broke some ribs and broke my collarbone, wound up having to have a steel plate and about 10 screws put in my left shoulder. So I've got like a 10-inch scar on my shoulder. But you know what? The lifts that we're doing, we're being mindful of certain things. I can't do certain lifts because I can't put weight on that shoulder, So some squats I'm having to avoid, and we're doing other types of squats to strengthen the legs. And as far as the shoulder lifts, we're being very mindful of that. And I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. And if there's something that gets inflamed or something that is bothering me, I reach out to you and tell you, and you make a change on it.
Yeah, modify.
Yeah.
So, and again, for people, there'll be dads like, well, I like all this, but it's, what about the lifts, and what about this is the Billy Reid program, the launch program. There are fundamentals in place built around every client. So Billy has his launch program, and that looks different from John Smith's as well. Okay, tell me, what does Susan, your wife, think of your changes?
Saying PG, we're good.
Love it. What do your kids, Billy? What do your kids think of your? What do your kids think?
They are, they are pleasantly surprised. They hadn't said a whole lot at times, but I think my son kind of showed some this past weekend. We went to one of his friends' weddings, and it was one of his college baseball teammates that got married, and so I got to see a lot of his old teammates there that I hadn't seen in a year, maybe a couple of years, and several of them went up to my son and told them about the drastic change, which I was surprised to even remember how I looked, much less that I looked different, right?
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of them made a comment to my son, which then was very enthused about telling me about those. And that was the
Yeah.
first time I really saw him get enthused about the changes I had made, right? And then some of them just directly walked up to me, which I loved, and just said, "My God, how much have you lost?" Right out of the gate, you know, hello, I ain't seen you in 2 years. Just you look great. How much you lost,
Yeah.
right? And I think I've told you this. I think nowadays people are so scared to ask because they're scared because it seems like there are certain taboos around how people lose weight.
Yep.
And I love it that I can tell people I'm just hitting the gym, eating right, you know, getting out there and sweating it off and working it off.
Walking, drinking water, saying no thank yous. And you know, just very quickly, I want to touch on that, Billy. And I love it. I love that your people are seeing you healthy in a healthy way. No drugs, no weird supplement, no supplements, like no weird supplements, no pills or injections or whatever. And you know, that shows versus Billy, you're not eating solid food. Or you're only eating one meal a day, or you're not eating carbs. Like these are things, and there are fringes that, you know, these methods, like people will adopt them as their lifestyles. They'll just always juice, or they'll, you know, only eat one meal a day. You're eating 3 meals a day. You're fitting in your favorites. Um, you know, it's balanced. It's all about balance. And when you're doing that over the long term, you train lean, healthy, fit, strong. And I love that you're getting the compliments. And then is, you know, what you're saying there too. There are people have firsthand experience this of family members taking medication for diabetes, like these famous weight loss pills or drugs, that is helping with their diabetes. Like absolutely fair enough. But if you're looking for the changes to stick and feeling confident about that, in my opinion, it has to be lifestyle changes. And how do we make lifestyle changes? We make them through habit changes, and we do it again in, you know, in those baby steps that they stick. And love that you know, your son you know, beaming and happy about, you know, people saying, "Oh, Dad, hey, way to go, Dad." Your picture, Billy, of you in the suit, looking lean, looking fit, looking, you know, fantastic.
Well, and I'll say this too about